Entitled parent thinks I owe her my seat because didn't book a ticket for her child. A couple of years ago, I experienced an incident that I can't seem to shake off, so I thought I'd share it here. My family lived across the country back then, so I usually bought a flight to visit them. This happened during the holidays, a time when everything was chaotic, and the weather was terrible with numerous storms. The airport was packed with frustrated travelers, and the tension was palpable. When I arrived at my first layover, I discovered that my flight was canceled. The airline couldn't access their system to book me a hotel room, so I ended up sleeping on the airport floor, clutching all my bags for dear life. It was a restless night, filled with announcements and the constant hum of activity, making it impossible to get any real sleep. By the time I finally boarded a plane, I had spent a grueling 24 hours in the airport. Thankfully, I had booked a first-class ticket for this leg of the journey. As soon as I got on the plane and settled into my seat, I felt a wave of relief wash over me. The plush seat and the promise of a smooth flight home felt like a luxury after the ordeal I had been through. I sank into the seat, closed my eyes, and tried to relax, hoping to catch some much-needed sleep. However, my moment of peace was short-lived. A very kind flight attendant approached me, gesturing towards the empty seat next to mine. She explained that a mother had forgotten to book a ticket for her toddler and was wondering if they could take my seat and the empty one next to it. I politely declined, explaining that I had had a very long and tiring day and had paid extra for the first-class seat because I needed some comfort. The flight attendant was very understanding and said it was no problem. She then allowed the woman to sit in the empty seat next to me with her toddler on her lap. The mother immediately shot me a scowl and said, "I can't believe you wouldn't trade your seat for a kid." I calmly responded, "Ma'am, I paid extra for this seat. You should have booked him a ticket. This isn't my fault." She continued to grumble under her breath and make passive-aggressive comments to her toddler, as if I couldn't hear her. Then she audaciously told her child to make the most noise he can. He can do whatever he wants. The incessant muttering and the child's growing restlessness were infuriating. As we prepared for takeoff, the tension between us grew. The mother kept casting dirty looks in my direction and making snide remarks under her breath. I tried to ignore her, focusing on the view outside the window, but it was impossible to drown out her negativity completely. The toddler, sensing his mother's agitation, began to squirm and fuss more, adding to the already stressful situation. Finally, I snapped and said, "Will you shut the fuck up?" I wasn't proud of myself for swearing, especially in front of a child, but after the ordeal I had been through, I couldn't take it anymore. Realizing my lapse in decorum, I quickly apologized for my language, even though she had called me several offensive names, including bitch. The other passengers around us were beginning to take notice, casting curious and disapproving glances our way. The atmosphere was tense, and I felt a mix of embarrassment and frustration. Despite my apology, the woman continued her barrage of complaints. My saving grace came in the form of the kind flight attendant who had originally helped us. She bent down to the woman's level and firmly said, "Ma'am, you are lucky to be able to switch seats. All I've heard from you since then are threats and encouragements for your child to be disruptive. This plane hasn't left yet, and we have no problem kicking you off this flight. If you continue this behavior once we're in the air, you will be banned." I couldn't help but smile at this. The woman finally fell silent, and I was immensely relieved. To top it off, I had downloaded Sex Life on Netflix, so I decided to watch my steamy show right in front of her, relishing the moment. For the rest of the flight, I tried to relax and enjoy the amenities of first class. I ordered a glass of wine and a nice meal, hoping to make the most of the experience despite the rocky start. The flight attendants were incredibly attentive, making sure I was comfortable and had everything I needed. I appreciated their efforts to create a pleasant environment, especially after the stressful lead-up to the flight. For those asking, I assume the child was under 2 years old, just a big baby. If your child is under 2, you can fly with them on your lap instead of buying them a seat. I think the woman hoped she'd get an extra seat for free. I hope that clears up some confusion. The toddler, although a bit fussy, wasn't really the problem. It was the mother's attitude and sense of entitlement that made the situation unbearable. Additionally, many people on the plane, including myself, had come from canceled flights. The plane was smaller than the original one I was supposed to be on, which might have contributed to the seating issues. I'm not sure why the airline didn't just switch the grandmother to first class, but I assume the flight attendant asked if one of them wanted to switch, and the mom seized the opportunity. Again, I'm not entirely sure, but that's the most plausible explanation I can think of. Looking back, I'm grateful for the flight attendant's intervention. Her professionalism and firmness helped to diffuse a tense situation and allowed me to enjoy the rest of my flight in relative peace. While the experience was far from ideal, it taught me the importance of standing my ground and the value of kindness from strangers. The ordeal at the airport and the confrontation on the plane were stressful, but in the end, I made it home and spent a wonderful holiday with my family.